This video is a short demonstration and introduction to developing or creating your first iPhone or iOS application. Uh, the first thing we want to do, we're assuming that you've already downloaded the Xcode tools from Apple's developer site. And the first thing you want to do is from the File menu, select New, Project, and we'll see a window to choose from various project templates. There's iOS and Mac OS 10 application templates. Um, we're obviously going to be choosing iOS application, and we're going to choose a single view application. And then select Next, which will take us to the next screen. It'll ask us for a project or product name. And we're just going to call this First App. And since I'm a fan of the old Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour, I am going to call it my organization name the Acme App Company. And for the company identifier, we simply use, it's a reverse.com format. And the class prefix we are going to leave blank for now. That would, you can fill in a project name that would be a prefix that shows up on all the classes that you write in the project later. But we're not to that point yet here. We're just going to leave the class prefix blank. Devices, we'll just select iPhone for now. You can select iPhone or iPad or Universal, which builds it for both. But again, let's keep it simple. We're just building an application for iPhone. We're not going to select storyboards. Storyboards have their pluses and minuses for using that as a way of building. There's in general, they can be somewhat limiting if your applications get a little more complex. So, and it's good to know how to do this with as little boilerplate code as possible at first. So we'll select use automatic reference counting, which is that's again, we'll learn more about this later, but it's something that Apple introduced a few years back that makes things much simpler when you're writing applications. And we'll select the next button, and what that'll do is ask us for a location to save this. I'm just going to save it on my desktop for now, and it creates basically a simple single view application. You'll notice some files, some classes already written over here. One is app delegate. That's going to actually contain some methods that we'll learn later how to set up and initialize our app. It gives us some things for initialization, and also some of the methods that we can use when we're closing an app or hitting the home button on an app. Some of these methods that are called that tell you the app did enter background, for instance. There's some things you might want to do when the home button is hit on your app. You might need to save some data or something. So these are methods that are called at certain transition states of the application. So we don't have to do anything in there for now. We have the Xcode tool or a template has already set us up with a root view controller, which is something that we would normally need to do in this app delegate, and we don't need to do anything with that right now. The most interesting thing here to note first, just to keep it simple and show you where we're going with this, is the view controller.zib file, XIB file. This is the blank screen that you'll see when you run this application for the first time. In fact, if we do nothing, and I have under the first app, I have iPhone 6.1 simulator selected. It's going to run on the simulator here right on the computer. If we do nothing and just run this application, what it'll do is we'll see this application open up with that same blank gray screen there, or view. And that's an important term, view, because everything that we see basically on an iPhone screen is what we call a view, or inherits from a class called UI view. I'll stop the application here for a minute. So this zip file is basically an easy way, a tool for laying out, adding various views, buttons, labels to this application, this view controller. And just as an example, let's drag a label over here. We're just going to set it up in the middle of the screen. We'll expand the size of it a little bit here, and maybe we'll, if we go to, we call this the attributes selector here, we can actually type a name for this label or some text that we want it to display. And we'll use the usual hello world, and we'll center that text on there. Now when this application runs, what we should see is that text show up on the display, because after all, this label here if we click on this second tab here in the inspector, this will actually, this is a quick help, this shows us what type of object that is in the display, and we can see that this is a UI label. Actually, this is from the UI label class. And if, just an interesting little thing here for those who are new to this, if you click on this reference down here, the UI label class reference, that should open up in the organizer a some of the documentation for the UI label class. And everything, as I mentioned, everything on an iPhone or iOS application, basically everything you see on the screen is a view or inherits from UI view. And you can see in this UI label class reference, the very first thing we see at the top is that, yes, it inherits from UI view. UI view, in turn, if we click on that for its class reference, we see it inherits from UI responder, which was the next class in that hierarchy list that we saw on the first screen. And if we click on UI responder, that inherits from NSObject. Everything in iOS and Objective-C inherits, or everything in an iOS application inherits from NSObject. That is the basic object that everything will inherit from. So at any rate, if we go back here, this is, again, to the UI label class reference that tells you a little bit about what this label is. This UI label class implements a read-only text view. You can use this class to draw one or multiple lines of static text. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're just, we're displaying some text on this blank screen or view that we have. By the way, you can see this label, if we look over here, the label hello world sits in or is part of this view. That's the main window that you're looking at in this application. So all we did again is we, over in the library here, the object library, we grabbed a label, we dragged the label over to the screen or to this view. We put some text in there, something other than label, and it says hello world. And now if we save that zip file, that view controller zip file, let's go back and run this application again in the simulator. And there it shows up with our text hello world. So this is just our first little introduction to creating and running your first app, and really right away we get to explain some of these things, what's going on, brief overview of what's going on in the background a little bit in terms of the app delegate file, This we'll get more into this later here, but what it does is it creates a view controller from that zip file, initializing it with the nib name view controller, and it sets the window root view controller as that particular instance of view controller. So and we got to look right away at that documentation, the quick help menu. That is actually going to be something that you use quite a bit as you become an iOS developer. So it's good to know how to go there, read that information, see what it is you're dealing with. There's all kinds of methods and descriptions for these classes that we'll need to reference as we write iPhone applications. So well, I hope this was helpful for a quick little starter introduction to iPhone application development, and thanks for watching.